What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC. Today we're taking a look at a couple R.I.O.T.s by Cerberus Knives. The R.I.O.T. is a small fixed blade. It may not look like it right now because we're super zoomed in to pick up on those small details, but for a sense of scale, I can easily hide both of these right behind the palm of my hand. That's not like a camera trick where I'm closer to the lens. These are only 5.7 inches overall length. And so definitely on the smaller side, which I actually really appreciate for an EDC fixed blade. They work excellent in that capacity. And so really like the size on these. That was definitely one of the selling points. Other major selling point though is that these are made in the US, handmade by Ortiz, right here in California actually, where I'm located. So I was able to grab this first one, the natural micarta, directly from Chris at CCKS. And then the very next drop, I ended up picking up the Ultem handled version through an online drop. And that's going to be more typical of how you pick these up. He's a small maker. He makes them in batches, releases them as soon as they're done. And so a lot of the times if you just go on the site, they're going to be sold out. You do have to be somewhat intentional, but it's not like they sell out in seconds. If you're there on time, you're going to be able to get one in my experience. And so you do have to be somewhat intentional in getting them, follow them online or newsletter or whatever it is to find out when those drops are happening, but pretty easy to get as long as you're there for that drop. Now, worth noting that I'm going to talk about the materials, but it doesn't matter so much because of the way he operates with those small batch drops. He does a lot of different configurations. You may get a different blade shape, different steel, different handle material, different sheath combination than what I have here, but you'll know what that is before the drop because it is announced ahead of time, which is nice. You don't have to feel like, oh, I have to make a decision right now. You'll know when that drop is scheduled, exactly what's dropping. And so last kind of note on that is there are 3 blade shapes. I only have 2. The one that I'm missing is called the Picol. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that's going to be a more tactical self-defense style blade, so don't have that one yet. I do plan on grabbing one at some point. Going to prioritize his other model, the MAFB, before I pick that one up though, because I don't think I'm going to get as much utility out of that Picol, but I still wanted to get it just to complete the collection. So with that being said, those steels, we have one, the Lightning Storm in 20 CV, and then the S90V on the micarta. And so he tends to use premium steels. Other steels you might see are like M4, K390, Magna Cut, probably a couple others that I'm missing. And there will be a little bit of variation in the pricing based on the cost of the steel. So be aware of that. It's not a huge variation. I think for the Lightning Storm I paid about $215, and for the micarta I paid about $230 for that S90V. So pretty small difference there. Last thing before we get into the knives themselves is the name. R.I.O.T. is an acronym, so you may have noticed it has 2 T's. Stands for Rapid Involuntary Organ Transplant Tool, which is just a hilarious name for a knife. I don't think he really ever refers to it as that. It's always just going to be the R.I.O.T. That's what I'm going to refer to it as, but just kind of a fun Easter egg. It's such a funny name for a knife that I thought it was worth mentioning. So with that said, let's dive into the knives. First one we're going to look at is the one I picked up at CCKS. I want to talk about the sheath because that really makes or breaks a fixed blade for me. For a long time, I only carried fixed blades when I was like outdoors doing like camping type stuff. And so I had medium to large fixed blades. Wasn't EDCing a fixed blade until recently. I've really gotten into these small fixed blades. And so the carry method really makes a huge difference for me, especially being that I'm in California. And technically by the letter of the law, you have to open carry your fixed blade knives, even fixed blade knives as small as this one. And so some part of the handle needs to be exposed. So I do have some where I use clips and have them sticking out of my pocket. I have a couple that I've been trying out as neck knives. With this one, I'm carrying a little bit less than legal technically. I'm just pocket dropping these with no portion of the handle visible. And I'm not super concerned about it because the sheath is also really minimal. It's not creating like an imprint on my pants. It's very small. I'm not getting searched regularly or really at all. And so not really concerned that I'm going to get in trouble for carrying this without open carrying it, but it does drop right into the pocket, typically in my jeans pocket, but sometimes in like a hoodie pocket or shirt pocket, stuff like that as well. And so really like the size on that at that 5.7 inches. Now, other thing worth noting is that these are going to be matched to the handle material. So you can see on my natural micarta, we got this OD green with the topo. I think that's a really nice looking combination, so really like that about it. Now, I mentioned I'm just pocket dropping these. If you're someone who wants to put an attachment on here, you do have a couple different attachment points, and it also comes with a scout carry strap installed. And so these are really easy to get on and off. Takes probably 20 seconds to take them off, maybe a few seconds more to put them on, but super simple, just takes a screwdriver. Since I'm pocket dropping them, I took it off, but nice that those are included as well. Now on the Ultem version, he calls this one the Lightning Storm, and so went with a storm gray basket weave Kydex sheath. This is still Kydex, it's just a textured pattern Kydex, and so not just printed on there, it does add a little bit of grippiness to that, which is nice, so you can easily rip this in and out of that sheath. And then the Ultem handles obviously being the lightning portion of it. And so the Ultem one, I have the drop point, and the Micarta is actually going to be our Tanto version. And so dimension-wise, these two are identical. The picot is going to be a little bit different. I think that edge is pretty much the swedge that we see on this Tanto version, although the shape's not exactly the Tanto, but that edge is going to be a little bit on the shorter side. Both of these have a 2¼ inch cutting edge, which is nice for the size at 5.7 inches. That leaves us about 3.45 inches of handle space, and I'm able to get all 5 fingers on there. It is a tighter grip. If I want to go in my looser grip, which I tend to prefer, my pinky does fall off there. You have a lanyard hole here, so you can add a lanyard if you really want it. It doesn't really bother me for this knife, the types of stuff I'm using it for. This isn't a bushcrafting knife. This is something just for quick, easy cuts and stuff that I have on me, so opening packages, random things, cutting up food. I've been using this one a lot for gardening, which I don't have a garden, but I have some potted plants and a bioactive ball python enclosure that has some plants, and so I've been using it for some gardening type tasks and just everyday stuff as well. And so yeah, not so worried about that. Also the fact that I tend to get up right behind the tip a lot of these things, like if I'm opening a package or something like that, and I'm in this pinch grip where you can see I'm not really utilizing the full length of that handle anyway, and that's a really nice comfortable grip as well. It does have some well-placed jimping that's basically identical on both of those as well. Really effective jimping, locks you into place nicely. Not on that 100% of the time. It really depends on what I'm using it for, if I need to make use of more of the belly of the blade, but if I'm choked up, obviously not touching, not jimping at all. One thing I like about this Tanto is it has a unique grind that I've never really seen on other Tanto blades. You have that really dramatic kind of oversized front edge and then the normal edge on the bottom belly of the knife. And so it has a unique effect to it. I don't know that it's really adding anything to like cutting geometry or anything like that, but both edges came razor sharp out of the box, or well, I guess it didn't come in a box, but out of the bag. And so no problems with that whatsoever. Overall, I think really, really cool. Now, same thing on the drop point. We're looking at different steels, but same 2¼ inch cutting edge, same swedge on the top. I think this one's a little bit longer than our Tanto, and then the jimping's in an identical spot. And that grip is really comfortable either way, even without that pinky on there, but again, you can add a lanyard if you prefer. One thing I like about this Ultem scale version is that you can kind of see through to the handles, and there's a couple of small details that you're not going to be able to make out through the handle, but you can see where they're located at least. And so right here on this side, we do have, if we can focus, we do have the Cerberus Knives logo in there, and so cool. You can use this as like a skeletonized knife, really easy to get these scales on and off. And then on the opposite side, you can see there's kind of this indentation in the metal, and in there he lists the metal or the blade steel that is on each knife. And so that's really nice because I got this one in person. I didn't know what the blade steel was. I don't remember if I asked and just forgot or I never heard it, but either way, before making this video, I just popped these 2 screws off, read the blade steel right on the side, and then put them back on, all done with probably within like a minute and a half or so, maybe not even that. And so really nice touch there as well. Other differences are going to be the grind on these. So on our drop point, we have a full flat grind, and that's done nicely, obviously, but on our Tanto, we have a hollow grind, and so definitely liked seeing that there. Really nice hollow grind on here. I believe he said he does it on a 12-inch wheel for that hollow grind, and so yeah, really nice. And then you have your little finger groove here right behind that little choil, and ricasso here to keep your finger from sliding up on that blade. Now, only other difference here, and this isn't going to be specific to these 2 knives, it's going to have more to do with the steel and the handle material, is the weight on these. The Ultem version with the 20 CV ends up being about 0.1 ounces lighter both in the sheath and out of the sheath than the Micarta S90B handle version. And so just going to give kind of an average of what you might expect because there's different combinations of handle materials and blade steels and blade shapes, so it may vary just a little bit, but on average you're looking at about 1.6 ounces on the knife itself without the sheath, so extremely lightweight, and then 2.5 ounces with the sheath, and so adding about 0.9 ounces with the sheath, and then again that's kind of the average. I just went right in the middle of the two. So other than that, yeah, I think that's really about it. You might see some different finishes. These ones are blasted and tumbled, but I think he's done some satin finish ones as well, probably some belt satin as well. I'm not 100% sure on that, but definitely check the listing. I think he's also done some DLC coated ones. So that's really it for this knife. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. If you carry a fixed blade, what kind of size you go for, what you think of this knife in particular. He's a pretty small maker, but he does pretty regular drops. I found it pretty easy to get them. Like I said, you do have to be somewhat intentional. I'll try and put a community post up next time I see that he's doing a drop. I don't know 100% that I'll catch it, but I usually notice when he's doing a drop. And so next time I see one, I'll put up a community post if anyone wants to try and get in on one of these. And again, they're probably going to be in that 210 to 250 range or so, depending on the combination. But again, would love to hear your thoughts on this one down in the comments. As usual, if you enjoyed the video, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, and hitting that notification button. And I hope you have a great one. Take care.